Yo, what's happening? Welcome back to the 182 News Podcast. This is your host, Poppin' Curbs. Appreciate you tuning in to another episode. It's been a minute. I've been sick. I've got a gnarly sinus infection. So if my voice sounds weird or you hear me hacking up a lung, that is why. But that is not even going to stop me from delivering this fine, free Blink-182 content. So I appreciate you all tuning in. The last episode, I believe, was the Blink friend in real life. That was fun. I brought on my buddy Matt, who is my friend in real life. We talked about all of our trips and the Blink shows and Plus 44 shows we've been to. It was really cool to reminisce and just think about all the experiences and places I've been just because of this band. It's actually pretty wild, and I appreciate you all listening to that one. I had quite a few folks reach out and say they had a similar friend or group of friends who they do the same thing with. So I hope you all enjoyed that one. It was pretty cool. Today's episode, we've got a couple newsworthy items to go over, and then I'm going to dig into each album. I'm going to go album by album, including Sideband Land, and I'm going to pull out one song, my favorite song from each album that I want to keep forever. I thought about this in the shower the other day. I thought it'd be kind of fun just to test myself. You know, honestly, I had to think about some of these pretty hard. So we'll get to that in a bit. I want to start off. You may have seen some of the guys posting. Unfortunately, there was a loss in the Blink family. So longtime Tom DeLonge guitar tech Doug Reich passed away. You may have seen Tom, Mark, all these guys were sharing their condolences about him. Doug is a really cool dude. I had actually hoped to get him on the pod at one point. I had reached out to him. He was always super kind to the fans. I've seen countless pictures of fans with him or getting pics or set lists from him. Super cool dude. There's a YouTube video I've watched so many times of him going all over Tom's gear. And when I heard the news on that, it's just gut-wrenching. Way too young, way too sudden. I want to read Tom's Instagram caption that he put with a picture of Doug. It's really pretty touching. So Tom posted this on Instagram. He said, "Doug, I love you. You were such an amazing man. You supported me throughout my many musical lives, and I always found you to be loyal, kind, caring, and wise. When I got skin cancer, you were the only one that shed tears. When I was having a bad day, you wrote jokes on my set list to make me smile. When I slipped and fell flat on my face in front of 7,000 people, you taped the outline of my body on the floor to get a laugh from the band as we walked on stage the following night. You cared for my children each night on the side of the stage when Jonas and Ava were so small they couldn't see. You tuned my guitar flat because I hit the strings so hard I needed the variation to be in tune. You did everything a modest guitar player could have hoped for when the pressure was enormous. But what you did best was be my friend. The world was a better place with you, and now heaven will be a better place with you as well. To your next adventure, life's waiting to begin." I mean, that just gave me chills. Almost got choked up just reading that. Obviously, have nothing but the deepest thoughts and condolences to his family. I know it really touched a lot of the Blink family pretty closely. Mark posted about it. Tom posted about it. The Blink page posted about it. Yeah, nothing's guaranteed in this life. I mean, it's crazy. You're here one day and just gone the next. So I definitely wanted to bring that up. Huge loss for the Blink-182 family. I saw Adam Willard, Doug teched for Angels and Airwaves as well. And Adam Willard, former drummer for AVA, posted a really touching tribute a couple days after his passing. And he had his drum kit out, and he was playing along to the Angels and Airwaves song Shove, which is a great song. And Adam had a nice caption in there, basically sending that out to Doug in remembrance of him. And he told a great story in there about how when they would play that song live, Doug would wink and grin to Adam before the song would start, just because he loved that song so much. So obviously wish his family nothing but the best throughout this horrible time. Definitely keep them in your thoughts. But definitely wanted to mention that. Speaking along the lines of Angels and Airwaves stuff, we do have some updates here. So Tom has been posting some pictures, giving some updates with Angels and Airwaves. Obviously, we've known they've been working on new material for a long time. We already got several songs along with the tour a couple years ago. We got Rebel Girl, Kiss and Tell, and then All That's Left Is Love, really towards the beginning of the pandemic. And my thought throughout this is, are those songs off of the album? How much material do we have? At one point, before their last tour, Tom actually said they had half the album done. They were going to do the tour and then finish the album. Well, at this point, Tom gave an update the other day, and he said that the first single is officially ready to be released. Now, that's interesting because a lot of people were thinking that maybe Rebel Girl and the previous material would still be on this album, still going to launch with this album. And that's kind of my question. Those songs are going to be 2 years old coming up pretty soon. So I'm hoping for all new stuff. And the fact that he says the first single is officially ready to be released, I do think that's going to be the case. So I'm looking forward to new stuff on that. Now, we all know usually when Tom announces anything, it's going to be a little bit, but he's kept these pretty consistent. So he also mentioned multiple music videos, a world tour. On March 1st, he said there were 5 songs sent off to be mixed, another 5 in a couple weeks to close the chapters. So he mentioned that this has been a 3-year chapter on this album. So there you have it. There's 10 songs right there. And to me, those sound like 2 brand new songs. So I don't know if Kiss and Tell and the others are going to be on there. Maybe they'll still be on the album. Maybe they'll be on some sort of deluxe edition of the album. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But that's exciting. The fact that these are off being mixed, 10 songs. I mean, to me, it sounds like they're pretty much done with this album at this point. He's mentioned that it's a mix of Blink, Angels and Airwaves, and Boxcar Racer. And I do believe him on that. So, before Angels and Airwaves, you could kind of tell immediately when it was going to be an Angels and Airwaves song because it kind of had the space sound, kind of the synth, longer intros kind of building up. But that line has kind of been blurred recently because, Tom's not in Blink. So I think the stuff that he's writing now would just be whatever he's writing. It's not going to be for a particular band. So some of these ideas that are coming out, if he was still in Blink, he probably would have used for Blink or Boxcar, etc. So I really have high hopes for this album. I think it's going to be a good representation of where Tom is at this point in his life artistically and the type of music he's into. I don't think there's going to be any boundaries on it. And we saw that pushed a little bit with the Dreamwalker. Alon Rubin had a heavy hand in that, and it's going to be exciting to see. He said that he uses Yed on the album, and there's actually going to be a music video with Boomer's brother Disco. So that'll be interesting. The thing that really made me think that this might be happening somewhat soon, foreseeable future, is Matt Rabano, who's in the band now, bassist, formerly of Taking Back Sunday. He even posted on Instagram, we've been saying this for a long time, but new music is coming very soon. And he never posts about Angels and Airwaves. So the fact that Matt even came out and said that really has my hopes up that we might see this, I don't know, midsummer, if not sooner. I'm hoping at the very latest we're going to see a fall release. I'm still in a weird spot where I don't know if you're a band or promoting a band or a record label, do you put out music right now when you still don't know about touring? I don't know the answers to that. On one hand, bands make a lot of their money off of merch. So if you can pump bundles out and merch out, then you're going to be just fine. You might as well. Maybe it's a perfect time to release something because everybody's still kind of in this weird spot where they're either halfway at home or still can't go out to concerts, certainly, or large crowds. So it's going to be interesting to see. They are on Rise Records for this album, so I don't know if there's any pressure there or deadlines there of when they need to get this stuff out, or if the pandemic kind of threw all that out of the way. So certainly going to be interesting to see. Former podcast guest and AVA tour manager Jeffrey Pereira posted a picture the other day of a Gibson new guitar of Tom's. It's a fresh painted guitar, looked pretty rad, had like a red stripe on it. It says "To the Stars" on it. And in that caption, he said this will be used for new music and a fall tour. That was the first time I had heard fall tour really from a lot of people. So the fact that that's even the slightest possibility is really good news. And, the vaccines are starting to roll out. I'm hoping we're going to get to that point pretty soon. I don't know about festivals with 30,000 plus people, but I do think, I have hope that by the end of the year, maybe we'll be able to get 1,500, 2,000 people in a room, I don't know how they're going to do it. Temperature checks at the doors or flash your vaccine card. I don't I don't know. It's going to be a weird world. Another thing in Tom's world, he did announce this reverb sale. So if you listen to that interview that I did with Jeffrey, it was a 2-part series. He mentioned actually at the end, I believe, of the second part, that he had been going through some of these storage lockers of Tom's, starting to kind of gather up some material for a future sale. And this is what that has been building up to. I didn't see any guitars. However, I did think there were some pretty important amp heads. I saw some people on the forums kind of geeking out over some of the clean tones that Tom had used for Enema came through these. So it'll be interesting to see what ends up going on there. To the Stars launched a talking Boomer doll, which was pretty funny. People love Boomer. They go crazy over Boomer, which is pretty funny. I think the pre-order slot is gone on those now, but those will be in people's hands pretty soon. I'm sure you'll see them, and I'll show off a couple on the Blink-182 online social media. More along the lines of my interest in Alley is To the Stars released a new press of the Boxcar Racer vinyl, and they offered signed copies. I'm all about that. You can press anything, and if Tom signs it, I'm all over it. So keep repressing those To the Stars. Looking forward to that. In fact, today they posted a picture of the Dreamwalker demos asking if people want physical releases. And I commented, I think on the post, like, please God, physical vinyl, have Tom and Alon sign it, and let's fucking go. That would be so dope. That kind of wraps up the Angels and Airwaves Tom World side of the news. I do want to mention, I just launched this video on the 182 News YouTube channel yesterday. So former podcast guest, Davy Jones, you all know him, #1 downloaded podcast to this day. It'll probably stay that way unless I get Mark on, which I still have hope Mark's going to come on. I do think it'll happen. Nothing's set in stone yet, no promises, but I do think he's definitely down, so we'll see. Davy Jones and I have been working on what we hope is going to be reference material for years to come for those interested in putting together Tom's famous white Fender Stratocaster guitar. So this is Tom's white sticker Strat. It's so fucking rad. He used this from 1994 through 1997, almost every show. A lot of people have built replicas of this throughout the year because it's just a fucking rad guitar. I had an itch to do this. There were several people on the forums who had put these together. Q182, Blink Still Rules, Davey has one. And I was seeing all their posts on this, and I was just getting so jealous. I was needing a new guitar, and I'm actually in the process of going back and trying to learn a lot of Tom's Cheshire Cat stuff. And I wanted to learn them on the stuff that Tom was playing them on. So I figured this is a perfect time. Fuck it, I'm bored. I need a new project. Let's do this. So I started digging into, okay, what guitar do I need? What mods do I need? It's a lot even just to get the thing put together. So Tom, the actual one he used was a 1994 Olympic white Fender Stratocaster. It's like a 40th anniversary. And that particular model, it had a dark fretboard. That particular model is nearly impossible to find. A lot of people build these with Squires. A lot of people will use a current made in Mexico Strat. It seems to have similar specs. So I was looking at these. I was totally down to get one used. And what I found was a lot of these either had chipping issues or it just wasn't worth it to get a used one. If I'm going to pay $500 for a used one that's fucked up, I might as well spend $700, $750 or whatever for a brand new one. So ultimately, I ended up getting a brand new current Player Series Fender Stratocaster made in Mexico model. One very important thing that was tough is it has to have the dark fretboard. So if you look at a lot of these, even at your local guitar stores or whatever, the white ones often have a maple fretboard. And the reason for that is Eric Clapton and Jimi Hendrix had the maple light fretboard. So those are extremely fucking popular. Tom's had a dark one, a dark wood one. So initially, these were rosewood for the longest time. I guess Davey was explaining it to me. I guess there was an issue with importing rosewood or something several years back. And so Fender kind of did away with that for a while, or just made it more expensive or tougher to get to. And so today they're offering typically what's called a Paul Faro or Pau Faro. I still don't know how to pronounce that properly, but it is the dark fretboard. So I had to find a reasonably priced Fender Stratocaster. It had to be white and it had to have a dark Paul Faro fretboard. So I did that. There are several modifications needed. Tom did not just crack this out of the box and start playing it for 3 years. Each of the pickups had to be replaced, which are incredibly important to recreate his sound from that time period. There's a DiMarzio X2N pickup that is so large that you have to custom cut the pick guard. So I had to order a pick guard. I had to get these saddles to recreate Tom's look. Long story short, this has been a process. I've got everything put together. And the last step I am at right now is I need to sticker this bad boy to get it ready. So what's interesting is it took years for people over at Blink-182 Online to figure out each of these stickers. And who was at the head front of that? No other than our very own Davy Jones. Tried to tell you, absolute legend in the Blink-182 Online and Blink-182 history book. So they spent years trying to figure out really what stickers were on there. I mean, a lot of these are based off of screenshots from a VHS in 1994 or like random YouTube rips. I mean, it is hard to find this stuff. And so we thought it would be cool. I'm building mine. And so I thought it would be cool to not only document that process, but to give people a deep dive who are interested. This is going to be more for, hardcore Tom fans or gearheads. Who are interested in this, a deep dive into the research that Davey and others had to put into this just to be able to figure out what stickers were on it. And then Davey recreated each of these by hand because it's impossible to find all of these stickers. Some of these are bands that, fizzled out, never made it. You can't find the merch, much less a brand new sticker that's ready to be applied. So Davey spent hundreds of hours recreating all of these by hand. And so I'm going to end up, I think, with 3 videos. One I just launched yesterday, and it is called Recreating Tom DeLonge's Famous Sticker Strat Part 1 Research. It's live on the 182 News YouTube channel. Definitely check that out. If you're into this type of thing, please be sure to subscribe, like it, share it, let me know if you dig it. The second part that I'm going to come out with, and I'm hoping to knock this out this week with Davey, is the actual application process of the stickers. So I'm hoping that one day, if you decide to build your own Fender Strat, or 20 years from now, somebody decides to do this, they can refer back to this video and basically get one-by-one instructions on how to apply this. There's a certain way you're going to have to do these. Some stickers are on top of others. To get even more nerdy, some people, there's different eras to this. So some people want theirs exactly like the Damn It video. Some people want theirs like it was in 1994. So the world is yours with the customization options on this. So there's going to be that 2-part series with Davey. If you're into that, definitely check them out. And then I'm also documenting this process that will be kind of a shorter video, just kind of telling you exactly what you need and testing some of the tones and how the overall project worked out for me. So definitely keep an eye out for that if you're into Tom's gear, Tom's guitar. Certainly if you're interested in the history of that particular iconic guitar, and have any interest in building one for yourself. Tom does still have this guitar, by the way. I verified this with Jeff, and he still has the guitar. However, he de-stickered it, like I want to say in 1998, which sucks. That's such a bummer. He de-stickered it. And Jeff did say that Tom has told him he was bummed about it. So unfortunately, it doesn't live as it once did, but it's still in his hands. So we'll see. Another thing I wanted to bring up, switching over to Hi, My Name is Mark. So on Mark's birthday last week, the Hi, My Name is Mark, fine folks there, they donated 50% of all proceeds to Children's Hospital of LA on that day in an effort for a promotion called #MakeMarchMatter, which was so kind of them. They are always doing rad stuff. Not only did they do that, they also upped the ante and they offered a signed pin set. So people go crazy over those Hi, My Name is Mark signed pins. and just the pins in general. And you can win a signed set, which is insanely rare. I think I've only seen 2 people who have a full signed set. One person who bought something that day would get those, and they even upped it up a little bit more, and there were 10 people who would get a used bass string, used bass pick, and Mark kind of signed the little cardboard that little bundle came in, which is insane. In fact, I have yet to see anybody who has won either of these. I know several people on the Discord have not. I did not. So if you won one of those, tag us in it because I'm curious to see it. It's pretty rad. Also, I do want to mention, on Mark's birthday, several folks over on the Hi, My Name is Mark Discord put together a wonderful YouTube video for Mark. And so if you're over there, you'll know that when Mark is testing bass tones, sometimes he will drop in a file. It's usually in the Twitch subscribers channel. So if you're subscribed to Mark on his Twitch, you have access to this channel, and he drops so much rad shit in there. I mean, it's so many dope photos, so much rad info. I mean, he's readily available. And usually when he drops in something, testing tones, for example, he's done this a couple times. He's usually playing Mutt on bass. It's so dope. It's just so cool to hear just the bass on Mutt, several different tones. He was testing several bass guitars out at one point. And so Davy Jones and a fellow by the name of Joey had the idea of, for Mark's birthday, let's get some Discord folks together and we will all play Mutt on bass and we'll kind of splice it together. It really started there's a musicians channel. So if you play an instrument, there's some people who hang out there and like to talk about tones and gear and all that stuff. And so there were several of us in there who frequent that channel and talk about this kind of thing. And initially it just started as a handful of us wanting to put this together. I'm not particularly great at bass, but I did learn Mutt, and it's kind of fun to play, and I put my little clip together as best as I could. And this was all spliced together by Joey, did a great job. We put this together along with various happy birthday messages to Mark, and we gave it to Mark for his birthday, which he was super stoked for. He said it made his day. He was pleasantly surprised by it. And I think I posted that on Blink-182 Online, Instagram, and Twitter. In case you missed it, it's kind of a fun video. So I did want to mention that. That happened. That was super rad, and appreciate and thank everyone who was involved with that. That's a lot of work. I know how long it takes to edit some of this shit, and you're doing it for free. So thank you, Joey, for putting that together. I do want to mention something from the GOAT. So Travis Barker has a store, and it's travisbarkerstore.com. I've been checking Travis's shit for a long time, going way back. And occasionally he pops up with some rad shit. So recently he has offered some signed and used Blink-182 drum heads as well as drum sticks. So honestly, I don't know how it gets any more fucking rad than some of these. They are a bit of a premium, but they should be. They've been fairly limited. There aren't too many of them. And the thing that's so dope about these is he signs them Travis motherfucking Barker. Obviously, I've documented the band's autographs for a long time. Travis usually just signs Travis. Sometimes he'll even just do a short signature, which is just like a T. So he pimps these out with a huge Travis motherfucking Barker, just so huge, so bold. These are drum heads that he has drummed all over. They're beat to hell, used on Blink-182 sessions. I mean, good Lord. I don't know how it gets much more rad than that. So if you're in the collectible game and you're looking, especially if you're into like signed shit or memorabilia for Blink, definitely check out Travis's store, travisbarkerstore.com. It's super dope. Okay. We are now at the portion of the episode where I am going to switch gears and I want to talk one by one through the albums, and I'm going to choose one song that I'm going to keep forever. So I'm imagining this like I'm getting ready to be cast away on an island, and I can grab one song from each album to listen to forever. So it's either my favorite song or just the song that I just know I will never get sick of and I just want to listen to it forever. So let's do this. We're going to go one by one. I'm going to be curious to hear your responses to this. Can't wait to hear them. So we're going to start at the beginning. I've got some sideband land in here. I'm going to leave out some of the EPs and such, but let's do this. So we're going to start with Buddha. Okay, Buddha most people think of as, their first album or whatever. It was actually more of a demo, but it contains Carousel. To me, look no further than Carousel. I have to take Carousel here. And the reason being is not only is it just like quintessential Blink, amazing song, but story goes, this was the very first song that Tom and Mark wrote together. So when they first met up and they were playing in Tom's garage, the story goes that Mark comes in, has a little bass part Tom that he was working on. Tom comes in, had a little guitar part he was working on, and they fit together perfectly and made Carousel. And it's just that alone is just fucking insane. I mean, there's so many different aspects to this of how the universe aligned to like bring all these people together to make this thing. It's honestly mind blowing. I mean, Tom gets kicked out of high school. If he doesn't get kicked out of high school, he doesn't transfer to this other high school where he meets Carrie Key, who's dating Mark's sister Anne. Mark was living elsewhere. If he doesn't move back home and tell his sister he really wants a band. Meanwhile, Tom has been telling Anne and Carrie Key that he really wants a band. Anne Hoppus has them meet up in a garage. They meet up and write Carousel. I mean, there's just so much fate in this that it's just ridiculous. It's honestly just mind-blowing. So for Buddha, I'm taking Carousel all day. Have to. Next, let's move on to Cheshire Cat. Now, recently, I gotta say, Cheshire Cat has been my shit. I mentioned the Tom DeLonge Strat, obviously, that I'm working on. And so I've been going back and I've been trying to learn Wasting Time and Touchdown Boy and just playing along to some of those songs. And gosh, I have got to give Tom so much more credit on guitar than I had for the longest time. I know, obviously, Tom is an incredible songwriter. And really, the thing that I always liked about Tom is he's not a particularly technical guitar player. He's not one that's just going to sit down and bust out a 45-minute solo to whatever you're jamming along to, or, ripping through scales one by one. And honestly, that's kind of what drew me to his guitar style back in the day, because I'm not a technical guitar player and I can't bust out a 20-minute solo or whatever, but I feel like, just like him, I can come up with kind of a catchy little riff. And so Tom obviously has made a living off of this, where he can come up with just an amazing riff, and it can be the simplest thing, but it's something that no one else has ever done, and it's incredibly catchy, and you know it immediately when you hear it. And so that's kind of what always drew me to Tom. And you listen to like all the small things. I mean, that's not particularly technical. You listen to First Date, even stuff like that, not particularly technical. I'll tell you what, I've gone back and I'm trying to learn some of the Cheshire Cat stuff. That dude fucking slays. I mean, look up Wasting Time on guitar and have fun playing that, 5-6 times in a row. I mean, my thumb's sore. Touchdown Boy is just an absolute blast to play on guitar. And so as I'm going back and watching some of these videos from 1995, 1996, I mean, not only is he shredding these live, but doing these gnarly kicks and the pick slides, and oh my gosh, I mean, just what a time. So honestly, I've thought so highly of Tom as an artist for so long, and going back and just trying to learn some of this early stuff has really, really upped my respect for Tom as just a guitar player. Like, I would love to just shoot the shit with him and just go over some of the early stuff with him. It's got to be just so interesting to think of how he was coming up with this stuff. So back to Cheshire Cat. There's several different ways you can go here. I was close with, I've already had Carousel's on there, so I've already knocked out Carousel because I'm picking that with Buddha. M&M's is close, but I think I've got to go with Wasting Time here. So Wasting Time is one that I've been learning recently. It's just such a fun riff, and it's just such a beautiful song. I was playing this the other day and singing along to it, and my wife was like, "Oh my God, did you write that? That's really good." I'm like, no, Blink wrote this a long ass time ago. I mean, it's just such great songwriting, to be honest. And, that combined with the gnarly intro, I can just listen to this song over and over and over. And actually what's crazy is, There's a version of this on Short Bus. Now, Short Bus is the super rare vinyl. There's 2 songs on it, and this vinyl is so rare and expensive that I've never played it. There's YouTube rips of that version of Wasting Time, and it's different. If you look it up on YouTube, it's a little bit different. Notably, the In My Town You Can't Drive Naked line is not on there. Recently, there was a Buddha promo tape, and this was long thought to not exist. I think at one point Mark even said it didn't exist. Well, on the forums, somebody, I think he used to work with a distributor who would buy stuff from Cargo or Kung Fu years ago, and they found this tape, and it was this Buddha promo that nobody thought existed. One of the songs on there is that Short Bus version of Wasting Time. The only version we've had of this really is just a shitty rip on YouTube. It sounds awful, but you can get a gist of it. It just sounds like kind of a crappy little demo version. And one of the members on Blink-182 Online, Joe, she's also on the Discord, big time collector. She has a fabulous project, Blink-182 poster project on Instagram. You should check out her stuff. She does really cool stuff with posters there. But she obtained this demo tape and, long story short, sent this off to Davy Jones to rip this so that we would have this amazing quality of this demo tape that we didn't think existed for years and years and years. And the reason I'm bringing this up is that version of Wasting Time is on there. And so when we recently got these, this was like 2 or 3 weeks ago, I have been listening to that version of Wasting Time just over and over and over. And honestly, I think I prefer it over the Cheshire Cat version, which is crazy. People may slam me for that, but it's just so raw and just so bare bones. It just takes me back to the time period, and I just enjoy it so much. But yeah, Wasting Time, no question, taking that from Cheshire Cat. Next, we have Dude Ranch. Dude Ranch is tough, man. Dude Ranch is one of my favorite Blink albums, but really as tough as it should be. I mean, you've got stuff like Pathetic, Waggy, fucking hell, there's so much good stuff on that album, but I have to go to Damn It. I just have to. It's the reason I got into Blink. It's the reason I know this band. So I have to take Damn It. Absolutely iconic song. You know it as soon as that intro starts. This is really what kind of launched them almost into the mainstream side of things and was just such a huge boost for them. Awesome Mark song. I love the story he tells about he just wrote this in a bedroom at his mom's house with a guitar that was missing a couple strings. And so that's why the intro is just kind of played how it is. So totally going Damn It on Dude Ranch. Next, we have Enema of the State. Obviously, this kicked off Blink to where the whole world knew them. Iconic album, absolute pinnacle of pop punk, in my opinion, will go down in history as one of the most iconic albums of all time. Everybody knows All the Small Things. Everybody knows that album cover. There's several ways I can go on this too. And what's tough is a lot of these songs, honestly, to me, are almost like played out at this point. Like, I've just heard them so many times. Like All the Small Things, I don't think it's been years probably since I've gone out of my way to listen to All the Small Things. That might actually be a good poll question, because now that I think about it, it may have been like 15 years since I've gone back and like specifically just went straight to All the Small Things. So I'm having a hard time on some of these because I feel like that plays a huge factor. But some of these stand the test of time longer than others. So Enema is one of those albums that I can just put on and listen to front to back. It's why that tour, their last tour, a couple summers ago, was just so amazing, because you got that whole album in your face, kicking it off with Dumpweed, all the way through. However, as I have reflected on this, thought about this, which one of these songs do I want to listen to forever? It's What's My Age Again. It has to be. Iconic riff. This is another Mark song, not surprisingly. And it's just one of those songs that I just, to this day, I never got sick of it. I'll listen to this, just as much now as I did back in 1999. So iconic song, iconic music video to go along with it. It was actually interesting. I can't remember if it was on the Chris DeMakes a podcast. Mark did an interview on there fairly recently, or it may have been elsewhere. Maybe it was something he dropped on Discord, but he mentioned that the reason he came up with this intro was because he was trying to learn, I believe it was Body Jar by Green Day. And, I had never heard that, didn't know that. And if you go back and listen to Body Jar by Green Day, and I believe it's on like their International Hits CD. And if you listen to that, you can totally hear that picking pattern. So check that out. It's interesting. You could see how somebody who was trying to learn that on guitar might accidentally stumble into, creating this intro for that. Another interesting tidbit on What's My Age Again, that was initially called Peter Pan Complex. So I think they did better with What's My Age Again, but that would have been funny if it went down as Peter Pan Complex. And I think there was debate at the label that they didn't really want to have to fight Disney on that, and maybe they should change the name. So there it is on Enema. Next, Take Off Your Pants and Jacket. This one just kills me. Take Off's my favorite album of all time. So, I can listen to this album front to back, still do usually once a week. You can go rock show here. You can go, the thing that sets Take Off apart for me is like the back half of the album. So I can go Every Time I Look for You. Story of a Lonely Guy. I can go all over. I've got to go with Anthem Part 2. And to me, it was, Blink was just so popular with Enema. Everybody was so looking forward to their next release. And me as well. And when this album dropped, that intro was the first just glimpse of new Blink that I had. That just kicked off the new album. Like, let's fucking go down, 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 down. And so to this day, they've played this live pretty recently, and I just go nuts. I just absolutely love it. There was a sound check I was at with my buddy Matt, who was in the last podcast. And they played Anthem 2 at the sound check, and he and I are just fucking like losing it. Sound checks are usually pretty chill. There's usually like 40 people just kind of with their phones out trying to take close pictures and, not get smashed by somebody in the pit. And he and I were just going nuts. And in fact, I think I saw somebody who was behind me later on YouTube, because I went and looked a couple weeks later. I was like, oh my God, did anybody get that on video? And I looked, and there was video of somebody who was standing behind me during that song, and my buddy Matt and I are just like jumping up and down, like, let's fucking go, because Take Off's his favorite album as well. So Anthem 2 on Toy Badge, that's what I'm going with. Okay, this is where it starts getting kind of interesting, because all is well in Blinkland through Take Off. Pretty soon, all is not well in Blinkland. So Tom, story goes, gets approached by the label about doing a solo project. I don't know if he felt there were boundaries with Blink at that point. They had blown up so large, almost having to cater to that pop punk sensibility. And for whatever reason, he decided he needed other avenues to explore some of these artistic vibes or songs and styles that he wanted to dig into. I think he was big into Fugazi at the time. So he had some other stuff he was working on, and it became Boxcar Racer. Now, what's interesting is Tom recorded the bass on this stuff, best of my knowledge. They had a touring bassist, and I know he didn't do the bass. Brought in David Kennedy to do guitar work, who is now in Angels and Airwaves. He's back with Angels and Airwaves. And they didn't have a drummer, so they brought in Travis Barker. Now, this album, it's an amazing album. It's really great. And it just, and I want to ask Mark about this. I want to ask Mark if, obviously this caused beef. And if I was Mark, I would be pissed. Imagine you're in a band that you start in a garage, and you end up, the three of you start from nothing, and you're on top of the world. And then all of a sudden you kind of find out that two of your band members are in a band without you. And not only that, they don't even have a fucking bassist. So, I mean, obviously, and rightfully so, in my opinion, Mark wasn't particularly pleased about this. And I think enough time has passed now that, they've kind of discussed this and are content talking about it. What Tom has always said is he didn't want to pay a studio drummer. And so Travis, I mean, he can play on anything. So Travis came in, knocked out the drums. Now, they did do a mini tour. And so, regardless of where everybody was at the time, we get this Boxcar Racer album. It's a one off. A lot of people just fucking love this album. I think it's a great album. There's several songs on there that I really enjoy. Still to this day, I'll blare occasionally. A lot of people would probably vote for There Is. That was one that if you caught Angels and Airwaves at their shows, what was that, 2019, a couple years back now? I can't believe it's fucking 2021. When Tom did his little melody, he would bust out There Is at one point. It was really cool. He would do Blink, he would do Aliens Exist, and then he would bust out There Is. Tiny Voices is another one that's super popular. My sleeper pick on Boxcar Racer is The End With You. I love that song. That riff at the beginning is just so gnarly. It's I mean, I just rock out on that one. There's a song Elevator, which is super interesting because Mark is in it. So for all intents and purposes, that song is Blink 182 from, a personnel standpoint. But it's not Blink 182. It's Boxcar Racer. But regardless, back to what I would love to ask Mark was his frustration more along the lines of being left out of that, which it probably was, I mean, I think it's basic human nature. When you're left out of something, it's kind of a shitty feeling. Or was the frustration and confusion there more because those songs couldn't exist within Blink? Like, that's always my question. Like, why did Tom feel that these songs couldn't be Blink? That's the question I have. And I suspect it's because it just didn't fit with kind of what they had built up with this pop punk empire. And, Tom has said, they've all kind of said, you don't get the next album, the masterpiece, the iconic Untitled album, without him venturing out and doing Boxcar Racer. But needless to say, it caused some issues. My pick, though, for this album, and it's one that doesn't get enough love to me, is Letters to God. And I remember just playing this song on my acoustic guitar all the time. And I think what I loved so much about it is, everybody's heard acoustic songs, and we had heard all the different Blink songs. There wasn't a ton of just super clean acoustic Blink songs, or with Tom, that we had heard up to that point, outside of maybe some bonus songs on Take Off Your Pants and Jacket. But I think what was so cool about this song to me at the time is it really opened up my brain to the possibilities of a rock song. And, it doesn't have to be a distortion pedal, or it doesn't have to be super fast pace or whatever. So and not only that, it can switch. So this particular song starts off just so clean, and it's kind of written from the perspective of someone who's dying, and they're almost writing to God saying, I don't want to go yet. Maybe I don't want to go. And it just sends chills down me to even think about it. And so it starts off just so clean, maybe I don't want to go. And then it just fucking kicks in like so hard. And that is the first time that I recall hearing that on a song, on a band that I loved. And to me, it just blew my mind of songwriting capabilities and what was possible and acceptable and what you could do. So Letters to God, to this day, just absolutely love that song. So next, they get back together, they rent the house, they start working on the next Blink-182 album, which ends up being Untitled. This one, I'm on the record as saying Untitled's not my favorite album in the world. I get it. I understand. It's the one that they're most proud of. I think they did do some crazy experimentation on it. I think they approached it completely differently. Everything, there were no boundaries. Anything goes. And it's fucking crazy what they made. I can't think of any other albums that sound like it. And it's absolutely iconic, amazing, amazing album. But to me, this one was pretty easy. To me, it's Feeling This, like all day. I have to take that. And that's another one that to this day, I'm still down to play all the time. They still open most of the shows with this. And I just go nuts. Everybody just goes nuts. And so to me, that one was pretty easy. I'm going Feeling This on that. Really, my sleeper pick on that one is probably Esthenia. I just love that song. Okay, after that, we get a bit of a hiatus. So they take a break at the time. And what always cracks me up about this is it's like they take much needed time off to, hang with their family or explore different endeavors, reap the benefits of the fruits of their labor, something along the lines of that. The message said on the website. And it's almost like immediately Tom just started working on new music. And so that was the question forever. It's like, okay, you don't have time to tour. Nobody has time to tour, or you don't want to mess with music right now, but you're instantly messing with music. So really not too long after the hiatus, 2004, 2005-ish, we end up getting We Don't Need to Whisper Yet next, which is from Tom's newly formed band, Angels and Airwaves. So everybody was certainly stoked to hear what was going to come next from anyone in this camp. I was definitely on board to check out what Tom was up to. It was so drastically different, but I was down with it. I mean, again, this seemed like just this evolution that Tom was on. And I just feel like Tom was just so bored with like these simple pop punk songs or progressions. And he was just over it and wanted to start doing something else, something different. I think Untitled, we kind of saw that. And then we end up getting what really is almost its own genre, space rock, some people call it, longer intros, delayed, synths, stuff we had really never heard to this level in the Blink camp. But this was Tom's playground. To me, Angels and Airwaves is Tom's playground. This is what he can do, whatever he wants. There's no label pressure. There's no really fan pressure of what to expect out of this. It's Tom doing what he wants with whatever sounds he wants. And so we get this album. And to me, to this day, no question, the song I am taking is The Adventure. And it's one of those songs that gave me goosebumps the first time I heard it. Still gives me goosebumps if I play it loud. When I finally caught Angels and Airwaves live a couple years ago, damn near had tears in my eyes when he got to the bridge. I cannot live, I cannot breathe unless you do this with me. I mean, just screaming that out along with everything kicking in. It really is a powerful song. And I think to this day, especially for Angels and Airwaves hardcore fans, it's probably the favorite. So that one was pretty easy to choose. There's a couple others on there. I really like The Gift, but that one was pretty easy. At the same time, so, Tom's doing Angels and Airwaves. Mark and Travis end up spinning up a new band, Plus 44, which we've talked about extensively on the pod several times. One of my favorite albums of all time. They come out with an album called When Your Heart Stops Beating. This one was tough for me because this album means so much to me. It's so good front to back. And so to me, it's like, okay, this even just the fucking album kicking off with Lycanthrope. I love that song. Baby Come On, love that song. When Your Heart Stops Beating, love that song. No, It Isn't, incredibly powerful song with a message. Love that song. To me, it came down to Lycanthrope versus Baby Come On, and I have to go with Baby Come On. And I think I'm swayed here a tad because it's Mark's favorite song that he's ever written. He routinely answers that question with this when he gets hit with it. And not only that, but I have some of the lyrics tattooed on my ribcage. So I have to go with this one. Otherwise, I need to look into tattoo removal. So Baby Come On for When Your Heart Stops Beating. No question about it. Next, we get I Empire. This one, to me, there is a standout on this that actually might be my favorite Angels and Airwaves song of all time. And that is Secret Crowds. And it's one that I wish they would have had on the set list when I saw them a couple years ago. I just think that song is so powerful. I think it's an incredible song, and I just love it. So easy pick there on Secret Crowds. Love 1 and Love 2. To be honest, when these albums were coming out, I was at a time in my life where I was kind of more into like the hip hop realm, getting into almost like some death metal type of stuff. So Angels and Airwaves, with Blink on hiatus, plus 44 not coming out with too much, I wasn't like insanely invested in the Love era as much as I was, previously, and ended up getting back again with Dreamwalker. But, I still checked it out, always interested in what Tom was up to. I was totally down with him doing what he wanted to do with the movies and such. So on Love 1, my favorite on that is Young London. And I think it's just because of the gnarly, like, AC/DC, thunderstruck sounding intro on that. That was super dope to see live when they played it a couple years ago. Love 2 drops, and, Tom is aware of this. And, these are great. When I'm in the mood for these albums, these are such great albums. And a lot of times I'll listen to these on the road, and they're just beautiful albums, and they don't necessarily sound the same to me. But when I look back on them and try to think of like individual songs and everything, I can kind of see, and Tom has admitted this, of where the lines are kind of blurring on they're starting to sound kind of similar. But on Love 2, which I enjoyed that album as well, Anxiety is going to be the one I'm going to pick for that. Inertia is actually my low-key sleeper. That might be like my low-key, that's my hot take on Angels and Airwaves. Inertia is a fucking amazing song. It's just such a low-key little banger. I love kind of the swag Tom comes in with. It's like, you're a liar. You wear a gun makes you look bigger. I just love that song. It's so fucking dope. So Love 1 and Love 2, those are my picks. Nothing too crazy there. Okay, Blink is back, baby. We're getting into Neighborhoods. Now, again, a lot of people didn't know what to expect since, it had been years since we had gotten something from the Blink camp. Everybody was curious. Tom had put out several Angels and Airwaves albums. Mark had been in a different project, different band, and nobody knew what to expect. And so Neighborhoods comes out to mixed reviews. The two that stick out to me long term, and I know we just talked about this, I think, on the last pod, where Neighborhoods to me is actually not aging particularly well, whereas a lot of people think it's aging super well. To me, I can hear how it's disjointed in certain areas, I feel like, but nonetheless, my favorite band was back. This definitely has a special place in my heart. There's some fucking bangers on here. There's definitely some songs where I feel like everybody is firing on the same cylinders, and it's just, gnarly Blink at a perfect time period that's capturing all of their artistic preferences. So a couple of the songs that stick out to me, I love Up All Night, and I know a lot of people didn't like that. Mark even said recently that he was bummed it didn't do as well at radio as they had hoped. I mentioned the irony is that guitar riff, that was a horrible version of that. The Up All Night riff was actually from the Untitled sessions. It was left over. One of the most famous ones that they've reused years later. And I love that song, and I think it's a perfect representation of, it's kind of got a little bit of Angels in there with some synth stuff, but it's also, firing, and it's a banger. Travis is going ham as always. But the other one that sticks out to me that just is a straight up fucking ripper is Hearts All Gone. And that one just absolutely slays. To me, I think I've mentioned this before, where in my alternate reality, if there was a plus 44 second album, I actually think Hearts All Gone could be a plus 44 song. And I could even see Hearts All Gone being the name of the album. So that would be kind of crazy. When your heart stops beating, and then all of a sudden Hearts All Gone, kicking off with this absolute banger. So those are the two it came down to me. And I haven't picked my winner on this. I think I'm going with Hearts All Gone. I think I've got to go with it. A lot of drummers say that it is the absolute hardest Travis Barker song to learn on guitar or on drums. He just absolutely goes off. I'll watch covers of this and it's just fucking mind boggling. I don't even understand how anybody's processing what's going on there. And so I think I'm going to go with Hearts All Gone for Neighborhoods, for sure. I'm going to leave out Dogs Eating Dogs. Like I said, I'm going to drop off some of these EPs. May get to those in another episode at some point. And so next up, the next release we had is The Dreamwalker with Tom. So admittedly by Tom, they were starting to sound kind of the same. Love 1, Love 2. Drummer Adam Willard had left. Matt Wachter had left. David Kennedy had left, just because they weren't a particularly active band from, 2012 to 2014. Those dudes got to have other jobs, other income. Tom was busy with Blink. However, once again, Tom is wanting to get into new music and he's wanting to push the boundaries a little bit. So the drummer that had filled in on the Love 2 tour was a fellow by the name of Alan Rubin. He had played drums in Paramore. He was playing with Nine Inch Nails. Incredible musician. And so he brings in Alan, and they start working on what became the Dreamwalker. And so I really, really think people underestimate the immense amount of musicianship that Alan Rubin brings to Angels and Airwaves. He's an incredible musician. He plays damn near every fucking instrument. He has his own project, The New Regime, which I've discussed at length before. And they start working together, and it's them two. And, Tom is an incredible musician, obviously. But he comes up with this stuff that pops in his head, these melodies, these different chord progressions and such. And I think what Alan does is he just pushes those to a new level. What if we did it this way? Okay, that's great, but we need this here. What about that? So really Angels and Airwaves for this record was Tom and Alan. And then Alan's brother Aaron was doing the engineering, kind of the back end producing side of things. So they were working well. At the same time, this was kind of launching alongside Tom's Poet Anderson multimedia series. There was comic books, animated film. At one point, they were working on a real film. And this was all kind of launching along the To the Stars company and store he had put together. And so Dreamwalker comes out, great album, totally different than previous Angels and Airwaves albums, but still recognizable Tom, and some absolute bangers on there and incredible melodic hooks that you would expect. The one for me, there's a couple on there. I love Mercenaries. I love Paralyzed. Actually, when I saw them play Paralyzed live on the last tour, that's one that really kind of jumped up a couple spots in my head because that song rips. But the song that I keep going back to is Wolfpack. And to me, that song is just incredible, absolute banger. It's actually really cool. They ended up releasing some demos of various versions of this, and you can hear the different iterations of this song. That's something that's so rad that I wish Blink and other bands would do more often, is give us a peek into the creative process. We'll pay for it, but give us a peek into these. And I don't know why they don't do it. At that point, it's just files sitting on a computer. You might as well do something with it. And if you don't want money or whatever, give it to charity or something. So it's cool to kind of hear how that song grew and changed significantly. But that is the song for me, the Dreamwalker. When I think of Dreamwalker, if I'm taking one song, that's the one, no doubt about it. And when they played a couple years ago, that is one that I was just praying was on the set list. It was. And when they played that song live, I feel like everybody in that room was just so fucking stoked and vibing to that. And it really was incredible. Okay, next up, we are kicking off a new era of Blink-182. So at the time, like I said, Tom was building up To the Stars. He was engaged in various franchises he was in the process of building. He was doing the Poet Anderson stuff, the Secret Machine stuff, Strange Times. Really was a fun time for To the Stars. Again, I'm a huge supporter of Tom and To the Stars and everything that they seek to accomplish. It's just a fun journey to follow. And around that time, Blink was wanting to make new music, and pending on the different sides you want to see, try to believe here or look into. For whatever reason, Tom doesn't have time for Blink, and they want to continue, which in my opinion, they have every right to do, as well as Tom has every right to say, look, I'm busy with other shit right now. You guys can continue if you want, which, by the way, was very nice of Tom to do. He probably could have, threw a huge fit about it or tried to fight it or whatever, but regardless, it all got worked out, and Blink-182 was going to continue with Matt Skiba. And so at the time, we didn't know what to expect. It's almost like the Neighborhoods era, really, now that I think about it, where, these dudes haven't really worked together, especially in a long time. Not sure what's going to happen. We had no idea what to expect. We had Alkaline Trio, we had Plus 44. No clue how they would come together and what they would create. A lot of people seem to think that it would be this Alkaline Trio / Plus 44 mashup. Ultimately, it was much brighter than that, and we end up with California. So the launch of California was fucking rad. I mean, I don't know. It's been a long time since I've been that hyped for some new Blink. So it was such a cool feeling to have everybody happy, active band, tour dates. Everybody seems to be getting along, something we hadn't seen in a while. And so we get their first album, and the first song that drops was Bored to Death. And to me, I love this album. Absolutely rips. And it comes down to 3, okay? We got Bored to Death, and then the other 2 that are in the running for me are Left Alone and The Only Thing That Matters. And honestly, the thing I like about Left Alone, for one, Skiba just absolutely shines. And there was an interview at one point where Skiba was saying, like, to him, this was the lead single. Like, there was a point where they thought Left Alone was the lead single for sure. And, so that song really is just something I had never heard before. I'm like, man, this is just an incredible song out of Blink. And the Only Thing That Matters, to me, off that album, I mean, that is just such an underrated, absolute banger. I mean, to me, that's like some old school skate punk sounding Blink. And so it came down to those 3 for me. And, I'm trying to take into account stuff kind of being played out. But, I'm not sick of Bored to Death yet. So to me, Bored to Death kicked off the new era. It was the first glimpse of Blink continuing that I got. And I think I got to go with Bored to Death on that one. It's funny, when that song came out, and I actually thought this too, I had a hard time telling the difference between Matt and Mark, which is so interesting. And I remember even texting my buddy Matt. I'm like, dude, I can't tell who's singing what. And I remember on Reddit, everybody's like, we can't tell who's who. And, now that I know who's who, very quickly, we realized who was who. And it's like, oh my gosh, how did we ever get those mixed up? That's insane. But Bored to Death is just an incredible banger. To this day, when they play it live, even at the most recent shows, that's kind of one of the ones that they're still bringing out from this album. They were still playing Bored to Death, and people just still go nuts. It's just an awesome, awesome song. So that's the song I'm taking from that. Next, we had California Deluxe. This album is so good. And the fact that some of these didn't make California just absolutely blows my mind. I couldn't imagine writing a song as good as one of these and just throwing it away. This is what makes me so bummed that I don't think we're going to get 9 Deluxe, because if you have songs like Misery and 6/8 and Last Train Home and Parking Lot, and it just goes on and on and on, that can end up unreleased, I mean, oh my Lord, give us 9 Deluxe. Like I said, we will pay for it gladly. It doesn't even matter if it's properly mixed. Just give us anything, but it's not going to happen. We're not getting 9 Deluxe. But I was super stoked they went this route with California. Some of these were left over from the original California sessions. Some of them were created shortly after that California tour, and they got back into the studio. We don't know exactly which. One of the ones that comes down to my final 2 was actually created for the original California album and didn't make the album. That is 6/8. And I recall reading an interview leading up to the release of California where Travis Barker said, yeah, we've got this song called 6/8 that's one of the hardest songs Blink-182's ever written. And it didn't make the album. And actually, at one point, that song was called Rushing Rivers, I believe. And so my two favorite from California Deluxe at this point, I believe, are 6/8 and Misery. Misery is such a good song. That was one we got early. We got that prior to the actual release of Deluxe. And I just listened to this the other day. This is another one of those albums, and I'm like this with Blink. I really don't listen to individual songs here and there. I get in individual album moods. And someone on the forums mentioned this the other day, like, how do you listen to Blink? Do you have a grand playlist, or do you go through particular phases? And to me, it's 100% the phases. I don't have a Blink playlist. I don't have, my picked 15 favorite songs burned to a CD that I listen to all the time. To me, it's always an album, and it's always front to back usually, which is kind of interesting because I don't do that really with other bands. But I'll go through different moods. Like I said, right now I'm on a Cheshire Cat binge, so I'm just listening to like nothing but Cheshire Cat. A couple weeks ago, I was in a Deluxe phase where I just listened to Deluxe over and over for two or 3 days. And Misery is just one of those songs that I just love so much. And so I think I've got to pick Misery. And I love 6/8. I love how it's in a different time signature or whatever. That's why it's called 6/8. So that's the timing. And it's the first one they've done that way. And it's in drop D. It's kind of fun to play on guitar. So it's kind of fun to play along to, but I'm going with Misery here. And the thing I like about Misery, and I was just singing it the other day, I was in kind of a bummed mood, but I really like the line where he just says, I'm not bent, I'm not cracked, I'm just broken. And to me, like those 3 lines, I was just like, oh my gosh, I was vibing with that just so hard the other day. And that's just such a rad song. I love that song. The bridge is incredible. I mean, yeah, Deluxe slaps. So, all right, let's jump into 9. We only have a couple more of these left. I can't believe I've been rambling for over an hour at this point. This is fabulous. So 9, we had, a lot of people were curious as to what was going to happen with 9. They had ventured out into different producers. It kind of took a while to come out. And eventually we ended up getting Blame It On My Youth. We got Generational Divide. We got Happy Days. We had such a wide range of songs on there that spanned so many different almost genres. It was pretty wild. And 9 comes out, and it was really actually well received. I was stoked. There's even, there's some people who just hate on the new era, or who aren't going to give Blink any props without Tom or whatever. And even some of those folks that I saw on like Instagram, Reddit, on the forums were really kind of blown away by 9, which was great. The 2 that stick out to me are First Time and No Heart to Speak Of. And I could have extended this list. I probably could have put Happy Days on there. I probably could have put Heaven on there. 9's an incredible album. And these 2, I think, are going to have to be the top 2 for me. I'm sorry, I'm thinking about this as I'm kind of looking at my notes that I had. So, God, First Time, I mean, when that kicks in, like, to me, that is almost like that's like Skiba era Blink recreating almost like that take off your pants and jacket vibe. To me, that is just such a fun Blink-182 summer song, just a fucking jam. It just kicks in, here's a good time, boom. And, No Heart to Speak Of, that is definitely one where Skiba shines. That's one that, in all honesty, that could probably be like an Alkaline Trio song. That's something that I feel like Skiba could have written for either band. I think I'm going to go with No Heart to Speak Of here. It just absolutely rips. I think the lyrics are just so fucking dark and poetic. It just has Matt Skiba written all over it. And I just love when Mark comes in with his deeper voice, nothing left but scars. I got to go with that. That is an absolute banger. Give me more of that. That is such a great song. So from 9, I'm taking No Heart to Speak Of. I really am, and I don't think that's particularly surprising for most. Okay. I'm going to finish off with, I am going to include Simple Creatures because I know I've got some listeners who enjoy Simple Creatures as much as I do. Simple Creatures really came out of nowhere. Nobody knew hardly anything about this. And I remember there was like a random interview and someone was interviewing Mark and they're like, yeah, and you've got a side thing coming out. And Mark was kind of surprised he asked about it and was like, oh, you're not supposed, nobody knows about that. It's not coming. And so at the time we were like, what the fuck's happening? Is Mark in a new band? Is there going to be a new Blink? And so come to find out, what happens is Mark and Alex Gaskarth of All Time Low announce Simple Creatures. And I remember at the time, people were kind of surprised. They're like, why can't this be Blink or what's going on here? And so the reason being is after that California Deluxe tour, if you recall, Matt went back into the studio with Alkaline Trio and he recorded Is This Thing Cursed? And they actually did it pretty quickly and they had a tour. So, he had put off his main band for several years. And I feel bad, honestly, for Dan Andriano and Derek Grant, for having to wait on Skiba. And so Skiba jumped back in the studio with them to record an album and a small tour, kind of get them working again. And Travis is always fucking busy. Like, I can't even keep up with Travis, honestly. And that's like one of my hobbies is keeping up with these dudes. And he is just, you already know, working on something. And so I think at the time he was working on what I thought was going to be his next solo album. I don't know what ended up happening to that. But, regardless, Travis stayed busy with his side stuff. Not to mention multiple businesses and everything. So Travis is a busy dude. And so what happened was, they just got done with basically a 2-year cycle of California Deluxe, and Mark was just stuck at home alone. And he actually said that he was depressed, which is sad. It's such a bummer, but that's also a great opportunity to say that, look, anybody can deal with these things. I mean, it happens to anybody. You would think that, just because you've got X amount of stature or fame or wealth or whatever, you might be the happiest person in the world. And that's not always the case. Even if you look at, yourself or your own life or even when I look back, I'm like, shit, sometimes I think the happiest I've ever been is like when I was broke in college. You can think back on all types of things, but the thing that happened is he was just kind of hanging around the house bored. And there are two things that happened here. One is he mentioned that there's always times on tour where you run into people or you catch up on the phone or whatever, and you're like, hey, we should work together. I'm like, yeah, we should totally work on a song together. And it just never happens. It just always falls through. This happens all the time. You run into friends. Hey, we should go grab dinner sometime. It's been a while. Yeah, totally. Never happens. And so what Mark had intended to do was get around finally to kind of meeting up with these people who they hadn't had a chance to work together, but said they should, and maybe put together some sort of small project where you've got a song with your friend here, second song with that friend, etc. Well, as Mark was kind of just hanging around the house, not in a particularly great headspace, his wife, Sky, recommended that he get back in the studio. She's like, you need to get back in the studio. Writing music is what makes you happy. Go do it. And so he did that. And the first person he called, who he was supposed to work with at one point, was Alex Gaskarth. And so they get in the studio and they start writing. And the story goes, they just started kicking it off and just started ripping through, some of these songs. And so the material was so good and it was coming, so freely and so greatly that they said, fuck it, let's just make a band. And so Simple Creatures was formed. Thank you, Sky, for recommending that to Mark. We have Sky Hoppus to thank for Simple Creatures. And so we get Simple Creatures. And so it kind of came out of nowhere We were so surprised on this, but it makes sense. It's harmless. Mark should be able to do whatever he wants during his downtime. And so the cool thing about Simple Creatures is he and Alex were both very much in the mindset that this should be different from their quote unquote day jobs. You know, they both are in, Blink and All Time Low. People are expecting a certain sound. They didn't want to form this side band and then create, 3-minute pop punk songs that they should have made in their own main bands or whatever. And so one thing that was cool about Simple Creatures is they are totally down to get as weird as possible. And in fact, they said that anytime it started to sound too much like Blink or All Time Low, they would turn it the complete opposite direction. And so I think that keeps it super fresh. I think it keeps it super rad, super weird. And that's why I love Simple Creatures so much. So that first album drops, we got the song Drug. We got the song Strange Love, both very different than what you would expect. It's just them two. They didn't have a drummer. It's kind of weird beats. It's kind of gnarly, like they called it trash pop. It's almost its own genre. And so we get EP1, and the standout for EP1 to me is Adrenaline. I mean, that song is a bop. When that song kicks in, that guitar, I can feel you all the way from my coffin in LA. When I'm 6 feet underneath my misery, come on, hit me with adrenaline. Like, damn. That song is sick. It's a whole vibe. It's a whole mood. I'm so bummed I didn't get to see them on tour. They played some, they're playing smaller venues, just those two, but it's really fun shows. They had like bubble machines. They had, someone walking around blowing up balloons. They were throwing suckers into the crowd, crazy light shows, just them two on stage. And I was so bummed I didn't get to see them. They just played a handful of shows, mostly larger cities, nowhere near me. They came out with the second EP, and this one actually leaked, I want to say 2 months early on YouTube somehow. I still don't understand how that happened. But this EP leaked, and my choice for EP number 2, which is called Everything Opposite, this one's close for me. There's a song called Special that's just an absolute banger. You've probably heard that. And then there's another song called One Little Lie. And to me, there's another one I didn't know until right now. I'm going to go with One Little Lie. I think One Little Lie and Adrenaline are hands down my top 2 Simple Creatures songs that I love. But I enjoy all of them. And if you haven't checked out their band, you totally should. I think some of the lyrics are some of Mark's best, honestly, because he's just spitting it all out. There's no boundaries in this project. He can do whatever he wants. And you should totally check it out. They played some more shows after EP2 dropped. And for the longest time, they were talking about some sort of small little mini tour. And that's what I was looking forward to seeing forever. And that ended up only being, I think, 2 shows in LA, maybe 1 in San Diego. There was 2 or 3 shows. And I was expecting, hopefully 10 to 15 was something near the Midwest that I could go to, and it just didn't happen, unfortunately. And then the pandemic hit. So Simple Creatures is still there, still working on music. Mark has said this year, Blink is the priority, but he just said a couple days ago that he and Alex were working on new material, working on a new song, working on some new ideas. So definitely stoked to see what comes out of Simple Creatures, and obviously new Blink. So, okay, that's everything. Maybe next time we do this, we'll have a new Angels and Airwaves record to dig into. I appreciate you all listening. If you want to follow me, I am at Poppin' Curbs on Twitter and Instagram. Let me know how crazy I am for my picks, or if there's any of them you agree with or just completely disagree with. Definitely follow at Blink182 online on Twitter and Instagram. That's usually where I post rad Blink, Angels, and Sideband Land stuff. And definitely check out, if you're a gearhead or interested in Tom's guitar, please check out that YouTube video about that. I think, like I said, I think I'm going to do 3 videos that should be rad there. And I would appreciate it if you subscribe, and rate and review the podcast. Much appreciated. I will catch you next time. Peace.